Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending AACP's webinar with Scott Manning presenting Increasing Case Acceptance for TMJ and Sleep Patients. I'm Shaylin, the Association Manager for the AACP, and I will be the host of the webinar tonight. This webinar is approximately 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. Diana will be on the chat feature if you need anything or have any questions during Scott's presentation. Please enter questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Scott has no conflicts of interest. Registrants can expect to receive a recording of this presentation via email within 5 to 7 business days, and attendees will receive their CE certificate of attendance within 30 days of the webinar air date. I would also like to take a moment to briefly mention some upcoming events for the AACP. The Medical CBD Crash Course for Healthcare Professionals with Dr. Gregory Smith, which includes 3 self-study pre-recorded lectures and a live virtual event on July 23rd. Also, the AACP's 37th Annual Symposium will be in Spokane, Washington, August 12th through 13th. We're offering a special for tonight's webinar registrants to receive 25% off registration using the code SPOKANE25, and AACP members registering for the clinical track also receive a free team track registration with code BOGO. I would like to introduce our speaker, Scott Manning. Scott has dedicated nearly 20 years of his career to helping dentists across North America create successful businesses based around their values and goals, with a focus on transforming dental practices to maximize the degree to which dentists experience happiness, fulfillment, and of course, profits. He has created specialized formulas and protocols that form what he calls the Practice Profit Blueprints, a suite of integrated business systems designed to help dentists achieve maximum leverage of their time in the office. He's an author of a dozen dental industry specific books, including The Dental Practice Shift, How to Avoid the 7 Deadly Sins That Sabotage Your Profit, Peace of Mind, and Production Growth, The Small Practice Revolution, and the 7 Essential Elements of Dental Practice Differentiation. And with that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to Scott.
Thank you so much, Shaylin. It's truly an honor for me to be here. Doctors out there, I have to say that maybe the most humbling experience of my 20 years now in this. I have such a deep admiration and respect for the AACP overall, certainly for all the doctors in it, but what it stands for and what you do to move the industry forward, to shift paradigms, to open minds, to innovate healthcare across the globe, I guess you can say now, and just really excited about tonight. And I look forward to just inspiring you and opening your minds to what's possible, to embracing the influence that you really do have, and your ability to engineer and control the outcomes that your patients deserve, and certainly you deserve as well. So, you know, there's an expression that knowledge is power. And I think to a degree, of course, we have to have knowledge. But at the same time, knowledge can be Achilles' heel if it's not put into action. And so today, what I look forward to doing is giving you so many tools and resources to take your knowledge, to take your powerful clinical expertise, and to put it into action with proven business systems, with principles that will all help us achieve the only thing we really care about most, which is helping more patients get healthy. So I want to give a little shout out to Shaylin, to Daniel, to Mahina, and really the whole AACP team. They're really world class. I got to tell you, we've all been around this dentistry association block many times before, and I don't know anybody that does it better or cares more. And I was telling Shaylin that my team and I were bragging about how organized they are and the tight ship they run. And, they really just care so much about you doctors and the industry as a whole. So thank you. All right, there we go. Well, so I'm gonna share in just a minute, doctors. I'm sure you know how this whole Zoom thing works. If you want to see me in a bigger way, I think you can do the speaker view. Otherwise, I am going to pull up a screen here in just a minute. But before I do that, I just want to look you straight in the eye, not in a tiny little window, and talk to you directly. And I also drew up on my little trusty whiteboard, a few things. So 37 annual symposium. I mean, that's powerful. It's powerful. And I think what's really fun is that dentistry is an ocean of different people. But when you find a place that you belong, that speaks to you, you love hanging around like-minded doctors. And I feel so fortunate that I've been able to call the Aacp home from a distance through so many like-minded doctors that are doing so much. So I just wanted to share with you a couple little things here before I really dive into the meat and potatoes. And I think you can see most of this depending on where your video windows are. I promise no fancy technology and certainly not a PowerPoint designed by a lecturer who's teaching clinical cases, okay? So this is going to be pretty plain Jane. And I just challenge you to get out a pen and paper and take notes as fast as you can and just listen for that aha, for that little one or two things that can move the needle to convert one more case, to help one more patient, to allow you to maximize your time and to make sure that you're working smarter, not harder, okay? So Shaylin hit us off here with the theme. Inside of increasing case acceptance, what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna lay out for you a very methodical 7-step process. That's what we call the connected patient experience. And that's really from the phone all the way to the follow through or to the case conversion. And understanding not just the steps, okay, of a process, a protocol, or a system, but the psychology, the choreography, if you will, around helping facilitate more patients to say yes. And at the end of the day, as you're going to see in just a minute when I show you my little board, it's not ever about how many patients you see. It's only about those you're actually able to help. And with that, they've got to buy in. They got to buy in with their mind, with their emotion, with their belief, way before they ever buy in with their money. And that's what we're gonna go to work on here tonight. So antennas up, okay, mind open, and I'm confident you'll find a few things to do. I think Shaylin covered these little things here. I do want to just give a big thank you. It is an honor, 100%, to be of service. I do write a lot of books. I got my newest one here. We're going to gift out to everybody who wants it, who's here tonight, just as our show of gratitude for being here. So our goals are very simple. More patients get healthy, all right? We want to increase your patient outcomes by having a better process, a more consistent experience that gets you the results that you deserve, certainly that they do. There are 4 things that I want to point out right off the bat. First of all is clarity over case acceptance. If you want to know a little secret, it's worse than you think it is, okay? And I'm known for being maybe a tough talker and maybe talking a little blunt or bold, no BS kind of approach. But here's the deal. Every doctor loves to believe they're getting every patient they see to say yes. The thing is, we're talking today about TMJ and sleep. Now, I happen to know a vast majority of doctors here this evening that you still have mixed breed of dog practice. You're serving lots of different patients, doing lots of different procedures. You've made a passion and a mastery out of craniofacial pain, and I commend you for that, practicing life-changing healthcare. That's an amazing thing. But it's really important to understand that if you look only at the number at the end in terms of treatment accepted, that doesn't tell you anything about really how effective you're being. People love to give me a percentage. They say 90% case acceptance, or we're getting 1 out of 2. Like, it really is not about a percentage, it's about an actual number. And the same goes for tracking all the way from start to finish. There's 6 key areas that patients have to move in a specialty practice, that we have to make sure that we're monitoring every one of those. Because if there's holes in any one of those little buckets, you're going to make it much harder to be able to scale and grow your practice. In fact, you may be sitting here tonight, booked out far into the future. You can't get a new patient in for weeks and weeks and weeks. And there's some doctors even brag about that. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the new patients we see. Are they ready to say yes? Are they the right patients to be in your schedule? Because we can fill up all the new patient spots. If at the end of the day, based on how many case starts we have, it determines whether your time was well used or it wasn't. So understanding clarity on case acceptance is my first challenge to you. The second thing is to know that you can control outcomes. You know, one of the things that I found so early in dentistry is a lot of times doctors, they feel an accomplishment to simply diagnose or lay out a treatment plan. Now, sure, you're happy to do dentistry. You're happy to have a records appointment or scans and appliance or splint therapy, or whatever your approach to TMJ or sleep is, and whatever therapies you're integrating in your practice. But at the end of the day, a lot of doctors, they're good at the talking part, but not real good at making sure the patient followed through. And they kind of leave that up to their team, or worse, they leave it up to the patient, as though it's kind of a flip of a coin, whether they do or they don't. So what I'm here tonight to challenge you is to own that outcome. Take responsibility for the fact that you're an authority. Right? You're a leader and a guide to these patients, and they're coming in for your expertise, your confidence, and for your leadership over them to move forward with their health. They're not coming in to waste their time or to be a looky-loo or just find out a bunch of random things. They're investing their time and trust in walking through that door in order to arrive at some kind of tangible result. So don't leave that up to chance, in other words. And I'm going to show you how not to. Of course, have more fun and get more yeses. Ultimately, this will boil down into 7 key steps to creating the experience. Before we do that, I just want to share just a little bit about all of you. I find that doctors in the Aacp are the most cutting edge, the most hungry for learning and education of any type of doctor, any genre of dentistry across all aspects of our great industry. So I want to commend you for that. And I'm sure you've heard of me. I say that humbly, only because word gets around, in this family. So I got my newest book right here, which we'll tell you about a little bit later. Several others. I try to do one a year or so, really just to be of service, no strings attached to any of that. So you probably know me, but I just want you to know my track record for helping doctors specifically in helping TMJ and sleep patients. This guy, Dr. Daniel Clower, and I could give a whole presentation about his amazing story. Very fortunate to have met him before he was even practicing independently in a standalone specialty practice. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here tonight. And I consider him one of my best friends and one of my most shining examples of star student who truly lives without limits and achieves great things. Of course, the godfather here. I say Dr. Almost everybody knows. I don't think anybody's put more fingerprints on TMJ and sleep across the globe than this guy. And I'm humbled to have been around him a lot, to gotten to know him personally, and to even have been invited to some of his courses. Dr. Shab Krish in Texas was a periodontist and an endodontist, 2 practices, sold both, and then developed TMJ and sleep practice. These people, no nicer people than the Lipskuses on the planet. So many people looked at them for mentorship and guidance as they do more TM and sleep cases. And finally, I just want to say to my very best friend who inspired me to do more work in the specialty realm, and I think a guy who has helped more doctors move out of general dentistry and broaden their horizon to holistic healthcare in dentistry, is Dr. Brock Rondeau. You certainly know of Rondo seminars. He's a big friend and has a lot of longevity in the AACP, and he's been a huge influence on me. And I proudly say that I've worked with him in his practice, that he's still operating, my friends, many decades in the game, shows up every day to keep helping patients get healthy. And we've had a lot of success together. The list goes on of people that have different styles of practice. And you certainly know Dr. Letterman. Okay, so every one of these doctors is unique, even though they're treating in the same realm of specialty care. And what I want to impress upon you is, just as every doctor in practice is special and different, just because procedurally, okay, they may be similar, okay, every patient is also unique and different. And that's why the most important thing you can take away from my time with you here tonight is the significance of never taking the relationship out of the patient experience. At the end of this, I'm going to give you 5 ways that I see doctors sabotage, okay, case acceptance and just overall success. I see them get stuck, plateaued, and limited when it comes to TMJ and sleep practices. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing I see so often is that we lose that connection because we get caught up in the process of the procedural dynamics, instead of making it raw and real about every person's story who walks through that door. The people who I showed you here on these screens and flipped through so many others in every state in America, okay, and north of the border too, it's that they haven't lost, and really they've returned to the genuine engagement of that personal discovery. And they've kept curious about every patient opportunity, okay, to be of service. And that's what's so important. This is a new book, 4 Freedoms of Dentistry. That's a gift for anybody who's here tonight. I'll send that out to you here later today. So here's what I want to emphasize as I flip over to my little whiteboard. The beauty of what I'm going to cover doesn't matter what style of practice. It doesn't matter if you've got a mega general practice taking every PPO there is, and you happen to be just getting in to TMJ and sleep treatment. Okay, or if you had a standalone practice for decade after decade after decade. I just had my good buddy, Dr. Romriel from Idaho here just this past weekend. He's been doing TMJ before they had the 3 initials TMJ. Okay, and it's a specialty practice. So whether you're still doing general dentistry, you got associates, hygienists, or you're over here practicing in a boutique way by yourself, whether you're seeing 1 new patient a day or 10, it's really important to understand that what I'm sharing is really about the individual human being. And that's what makes it special. Okay. So before I jump to this, I just want to call your attention to my little whiteboard. I got this from the good old Jim Rohn. If you know Jim Rohn, he used to use a chalkboard. That was the good old days. Okay, so a little shadow or glare here with the evening sun. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm just going to read a couple things to you. Now, here's where you really want to take notes, okay? Because you're going to have the PowerPoint and you'll have all the little details. I'm going to be giving you 21 different things, okay? 21 in 21 minutes, okay, of ways to help your patients. But first and foremost, we want to start with the premise. The number 1 responsibility you have is to build better patients. So often we expect too much. We expect too much from the doctor referring them to your practice. We expect too much from the patient calling up. We expect too much that they ask about insurance, and we wonder why. The patient doesn't know anything else to ask about. Okay, so I want you to assume nothing of these people and assume that they know nothing about why they're coming in, okay, why the doctor sent them, okay, or how it's all supposed to work. We want to start with a blank page. And we want to elevate and educate. I'm going to say that all night long. Elevate and educate the patient. Now, that's really good news for you because we get to change their paradigm and teach them how to make a smart decision, okay, about their current health situation. So the second thing I really want you to embrace is that it's not about how many patients you see. Never has been. It's only about how many say yes. Now, what that means is that we cannot look at success as just new patient numbers alone. In fact, the whole entire game in a pain and sleep practice is to continue to be more discerning about who gets in, more protective over your time, and it moved the needle in terms of how many walk through the door ready to say yes versus how many people you hope, okay, show up or you have a chance to help. When you're in the new patient business and you don't have a holding tank of hygiene patients to pull from, you really have a much different battle of earning trust quickly, of managing patient expectations. I would even say setting new patient expectations. Right? So make sure you're judging success by the right thing. So if this is the case, if you will buy this premise from me, then you understand the most important objective is crystal clear. That is that we only help the patients that say yes. And therefore, everything we do from start to finish should be looked at through that lens, should be rubbed up against, okay, that standard. And so I write down here that a lot of times as doctors move into TM and sleep, or you've been doing it for years and years, it tends to be we talk a lot clinically to the patient. Now there's a place for that. I just want you to remember to calibrate how much you're talking versus how much the patient is talking. Okay, simply flip this switch. Instead of doctor telling, we want patient talking. We want questions and feedback. That's the way to the path of least resistance. So it's not about how smart you are, right? It's about how relevant you, the information, the problem, all these things become to the patient. In my teaching of all types of dentistry, we always say the most important thing a patient can do is own the problem. They can understand what's going on, right? And they can take responsibility for doing something about it. It's not about you knowing everything. It's about the patient being empowered to make a better decision, to move down the pathway to health. So finally, I already said take control over yeses. So how do we do that? We do that first and foremost by focusing on the psychology, the mindset, okay? The energy and the attitude. This is more important than all the tips and tricks I'm going to tell you about. Energy and attitude. So I want you to make a commitment today. I want you to ask yourself, what can you be more intentional about? Whether that's morning huddles, whether that's referral education, whether that's follow-up, whether it's more personal soap notes and feedback letters to your referring doctors, whether it's more intentionality on phone calls or scheduling structure. Good news, probably all of the above. But as I walk you through the 7 steps, you're doing all of them in a way now. You couldn't be open for business if you weren't doing all of them in a way. What we want to do is link them together, make them more consistent, and be more intentional. So finally, for you and your team's mindset, remember, authority leader guide. Build value, don't justify. Very important. I could go hours on that, okay? Build more value to where there's a preponderance of proof for the patient to trust you. Don't try to justify your existence or your price, okay? Empathy, not sympathy. Empathy, not sympathy. I teach every dental professional that comes to Nashville to see me, thousands and thousands of them, okay? I teach them one simple secret to life. It's called empathy leads to influence. Sympathy just makes everybody feel worse, okay? There's a place for it, but when it comes to motivating patients to do something, it's more about understanding them, understanding where they're at, where they came from, what they understand to be true, so that you can empathize and then influence them to think differently. Expect yeses And now listen to this. Be helpful, not defensive. Be helpful, not defensive. You don't have to defend your treatment protocols while you're a dentist talking about the airway. Okay? You don't defend. You're just helpful, okay, to change the person's perspective. The way you do that is use more stories, testimonials, tell about other patients. The more you use stories of others, and if you want to know the real secret, it's to embed it throughout the patient experience. I'm actually going to show you that in just a second, okay? I just implied trust and endorsement and proof by embedding doctors without the story, because we don't have time. You didn't show up for that. Although the most instructional thing I could do would be tell you about every single doctor's practice model and how they've transformed. You can read some of that in the book. Questions are how you establish empathy. If the patient doesn't share, okay, their connection is impossible. It's the sharing that builds the trust, okay? It's very important for the patient to understand nothing stays the same. Now, you as the doctor, the scientist, know growing or dying, well, biologically, that may be the most factual thing that was ever stated. So it's really important. There's no such thing as coming in the way you are, walking out and staying that way. Life only gets better or worse based on action or inaction. And that's why knowledge must lead not to power, but to action in order for it to have any power at all. All of these things I'm sharing with you can be said to your patients. This is a little Scott secret. This is a power word. It's a subliminal psychological tool. And any of my doctors here tonight listening to me, you think they'd had enough by now. They already have that memorized. You must remember to always tell people they deserve. They deserve better. They deserve to be out of pain. They deserve a healthier life. They deserve to redevelop their jaw. They deserve to sleep. They deserve whatever. They got to know this, okay? We live in a world that suppresses all of our wishes, our hopes, our dreams, our desires. You want to give patients the most important thing. It's not treatment. It's permission. It's permission that they're worth it. They're worth it to do something. And then lastly, and this is something we can follow up on another time, if they'll have me, reason why and the use of the word because. So one of the most important secrets when it comes to helping people understand things is to express to them something that's agreed upon, factual, and then give them a reason why it's true. So as an example, I'm going to show you in just a second, I talk about the 3 Ps, pictures, proof, and pain. The reason why we talk about the 3 Ps, pictures, proof, and pain, is because we can now say, see this, okay, because, right, your jaw is out of alignment, because your arch is super narrow, because your stuff that I'm going to show that this is why you're the doctor, okay? Can you believe they let me in tonight? Yeah, I heard they usually do clinical education. Well, we all agreed earlier that the Aacp power team, we agreed that, all the education in the world doesn't help more people unless they say yes to it. So I guess that's what I'm here for, okay? So I'm not the doctor, so I'm not going to pretend like I am. But whatever the conditions are, if you can show them, then give them the reason why. You have pain because of this. Objective, not my opinion, objective. Then it's much easier to say, and guess what? Here's how we can help you. Because we're going to do this, it's going to change that. So now you got a patient being able to see the full spectrum of what you're talking about versus just taking your opinion because you're smart and a doctor. The more you can make that experience interactive and bring it to life, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's cone beams or posture shots up against the grid, it's splints going down at an angle, it's a home sleep study test, an apnea score, like it doesn't make any difference. The JVA, the great friends at the BioResearch, the jaw tracker, or the other thing that you bite down on and goes all over the place. You know, all that stuff. It's so important. Use the tools and resources you've got. So that's what that means. Reason why, because. And if you do that, the patient will be all in, right? They're used to people talking over their head. They're used to people promising solutions and giving them nothing, or telling them they're helpless and there's nothing that can be done. You understand this. So you have to wipe that slate clean, reestablish a baseline, okay, and then change the paradigm of the patient. So with that said, in the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to walk you through the 7 steps, and we'll be good to go. They gave us a little time for questions at the end. That's, I think, how things work around here. So hopefully I stimulate a few of those. That's some things maybe you want to dive in deeper too. So just track with me, and I imagine that you'll get a follow-up on this. So while I usually am a quality over quantity kind of a guy, tonight I know how smart you are and the sponges and how hungry for information doctors in the Aacp are. So I'm just gonna go pour it out, each of the steps, and give you a few little things, okay? So the first step is what we call the welcome process. This is about pre-education. Now, why pre? Pre-education means before they walk through the door. So I want you to be thinking about what you're doing from the phone call to the front door. Oh, wait, we can back up even further, okay? From the referral source to the phone call. Isn't that cool? Okay, so we want to think about not waiting for a patient to arrive to make magic happen and hope for a good outcome. We want to start early, pre-educating. Now, this can literally be making your referral sources better. You know how you do that? You go to the ones that already get it and teach them how to screen and send more patients. You don't convince the doubters. You don't convince the ones that send you the patients and complain about the fact that you're out of network with all the insurances. No, you pour into the ones that they already get the game, okay? And that's what's important. Of course, you can do all the things you know to do. I know Dr. Clower last year did a really cool marketing patient attraction thing and how to get more referrals and be more of a prominent authority in your community. So here's the deal. Don't beg for business. You're a specialist at what you do. Okay? Be proud of that. And the trick is to help other doctors help their patients in ways that they can't, you can. And so it's really about completing the cycle of life, the circle of health, if you will. And so fill that void and they'll be so happy. Of course, you can screen their team members. You can offer family or we call them healthcare partnership scholarships. You can do lots of stuff. But what I'm talking about is the phone call, okay? The experience begins before the patient ever walks in. The more deliberate we are about what happens from the time we hang up to the time they walk through, the better off you're going to be. And for 20 years in the Dental Practice Shift, my very first book, okay, I said the battle for case acceptance should be won before it's ever fought, meaning that we are not in the convincing business. You don't want that game. Okay, what you want to do is focus on what we can proactively do to move the patient a little bit more every step of the way. The other thing is, you're not trying to diagnose them over the phone. I see way too many people over-screening, not under-screening, over-screening, weeding people out before they got a chance even to listen to you and to be educated by you. Now, this is not for, I can't customize it to everybody here over the internet, okay? But we have people that are doing virtual consults to double screen patients. We have people doing prepaid deposits for consults or for comprehensive exams. We have people just letting everybody in and figuring it out from there. So you have to decide. The most important thing is on the telephone, that we're engaging the patient. We're asking enough questions to gather enough data to be able to make a decision about how we screen the patient and schedule them, but also so that the patient feels that sense of emotional connection. And then from there, everything from sending testimonials and patient stories to my number one most recommended thing I say on the before piece is sending a welcome video from the doctor. Now, you've had to have heard this from 100 people, and certainly a broken record from me, but it's vital. It's vital that we don't take the patient on face value for however they were sent to us. We need to take control over that and begin opening their mind and helping them understand. First of all, celebrating their decision to call you, to come in, to be at a doctor who cares so much about them, to refer them to you. Always remember, reward good behavior. You can see the other things on the screen. I can't cover all of it. The control the narrative is a good one. Okay? Establish trust through connection. Now, I'm a firm believer that trust rules all, okay? And trust is built through telling the truth and doing it transparently. Truth and transparency equal trust, all right? So you think about how you can do that. First way you can do that is you can ask the patient about their goals. You can ask the patient about their past experiences. You can ask the patient what led them to be here with you today and to tell you more about the things they've tried and failed, or the things they've thought of and never done, or what they believe to be their situation. It's very important. This is why we teach the treatment coordinator to engage the patient as soon as humanly possible, to be their advocate and guide through the experience versus just rushing them in to the operatory or the treatment room and knocking out the clinical diagnostics. It's really important to humanize the experience in the beginning, because you know way better than me, you have patients with some anxiety, you have patients with a whole lot of skepticism and doubt. Okay, some are hopeful and others may feel hopeless. So before you go pulling their mouth all around and taking all kind of funny pictures, we really got to just lower, slow it down, okay, lower the barrier and just connect, okay? Lastly, I'll just say begin with the end in mind. All right, you understand that? The great Stephen Covey. You tell the patient, here's what to expect and here's how we're going to get there. Very important. Okay, the third step is building belief through truth and transparency. I already said that, didn't I? See, these all linked together. There you have it. Okay, belief is about telling the patient the truth. No smoke and mirrors, not rushing to a solution before you've established a problem. Now, people have a real hard time with this. As doctors, we see the patient, we're doing it all day long, and like, I know how to help. And we dive right into telling them the good news. But you know what? They're not a believer yet. So before we rush to the punchline or be given a solution, we have got to establish the patient's belief on the problem. The next thing you want to establish belief on is the outcome. We call benefits or consequences. Benefits of solution and consequences of doing nothing or staying the same, or whatever else you want to put in there. It could be consequences of a lesser solution. And then finally, the clinical creation. There's a really powerful tool called past, present, future. It's part of psychology, and it's basically sharing with the patient, okay, here's where you've come from. Here's all you've experienced and been through. Here's where you're at right now. And the good news is there's a brighter future ahead. In fact, I got a little quote I'm going to share with you at the very end, because I love quotes. This just happened to be yesterday's, perfectly fitting for you. So remember, it's about the patient's vision forward and you connecting to their why. Next up, we have purposeful doctor engagement. Hey, doctors, one of the most beautiful parts about pain and sleep is it can be team driven. We can have the team do so many wonderful things, but just, hey, don't sell yourself short. Don't take you for granted. And by golly, you can't abdicate, okay, the powerful influence that you have. Patient needs to see it, needs to hear from you, okay, and they truly need to engage with you. So make sure that while your clinical experience can be abbreviated as you see fit, it's important for it to be super duper purposeful. I already told you about the 3 Ps, pictures, proof, and pain, about selling the problem and making sure the patient leads the diagnosis. That means that every time you make an assertion, you've got to get the acknowledgement, the affirmation from the patient. So you slow it down and you make sure the patient is moving in parallel with you. Okay? Very important. Okay, just for the sake of time here, we'll wrap up quickly. Create desire and deserve level. And this is about health and a better life. They deserve health and a better life. All that has to happen is that the benefits of the treatment, in this case, we call it the pathway to health, are worth more to the patient than the money they have to invest. And all I want you to remember is the believability and the buy-in must be emotionally, clinically, before it's financial. It's very simple. We set our treatment coordinators up to do the heavy lifting, and they shouldn't have to. At this point, the patient should be at a place where, like, no matter the number, they're going to find a way, because the promised land that lies ahead, okay, they can't possibly not get to that place. And that's what your clinical experience really should do. So I did promise in a little bullet points to talk about the same day close. We'll have to follow up on that one, but it's real simple. You always want to set the expectation that if it's possible to help the patient the first time they're there, that they will have an opportunity to move forward. Okay, everybody wants to be proactive in the moment when they can. And so the last thing we want to do is get the patient super excited, say, oh, but you got to come back. No time for impressions or scans today. Sorry about you. You don't want to do that. So you have to build and engineer your schedule, and you have to educate the patient into a position where, if possible, and we can help you, we'd love to get you started down that pathway to health today. Excuse me. You can also do some really cool things with the way you invest in deposits, exams, records, and starting the case if you keep that in motion. Now, there are some instances where the patient's got to come back, for a treatment conference. So step number 5, the investment structure is very simple. We always, when we go to money, we represent the patient's problem that they came in for, the solution or the pathway to health, and describe in great depth the outcome, the outcome, and then the investment to get there. You never, ever want to use investment tied to procedure, to steps, to any kind of itemizations. We want the investment to not be for appliances and visits. We want the investment to be for outcomes, values, and benefits. Follow me? So when you represent that, it's got to be anchored to there. And that's the key piece. I strongly encourage, if you're doing consults and then comprehensive exams, that you rebate the deposit forward. Okay? Same with a case start or a records appointment. You're going straight to comprehensive exam, you can rebate into records. This is just the path of least resistance, especially if it's an incentive to do it same day. Forward motion, of course, everybody knows to prepay. I talk about that a lot, but you certainly all know that here. The final step is the one everybody says they do and no one really does. And that's called follow up and follow through. I can assure you, no matter how amazing your team is, they're probably doing the best they can with what they got. Okay, more than happy to help them, okay? But no matter what they say, they're not doing nearly enough to follow up and help patients follow through. You have to track not numbers, but human beings. And you have to make sure at the end of every day, we account for every person who walked in. So I just want to finish real quick with these mistakes. And I know we want to leave time for questions. So I'll turn it back over to the team here. So avoid these mistakes, my friends. Don't sell yourself short on your value. You only got so much time in a day. Nobody likes the answer to work more hours and see more patients, not you and not your team. So just know this, you belong to the AACP. You belong to the place that people who treat pain and sleep go to get educated and grow their skills. This is the gold standard of care. There's nothing wrong with you being paid what you're worth. In fact, there's no amount a patient could pay that's really worth the health enhancement to their life that you provide. So they'll only value you if you value you first. So just make sure you know that, okay? You commoditize yourself if you choose, or you go the opposite direction. Don't confuse time and visits for your value. It's really about expertise and benefits. Treating all patients and referral sources equally. They're not. We can treat them fairly, but there's a level of investment and there's a level of interest the patient has. They have to be committed to their health. Just like a referring doctor has to be committed to helping the patient actually get treated, okay, not just hand people business cards or tell them to call you. Don't try to do too much too soon. Understand that the relationship has to build over time. That doesn't mean like weeks and months. I'm talking about over 90 minutes. I'm talking about before they walk through the door and after they leave. Think of the patient experience as a continuum, okay? And finally, don't mistake that the business you're in is not the visits. It's not even the schedule. It ultimately is the individual people, the patient relationships, and the case conversions or case starts. That's really the deal. So if we focus in on that, case acceptance is everything, because that's what ultimately leads to you helping more patients. So I leave you with one of my favorite questions of all time. It's, what would you do if you could not fail? I did just release a brand new book as my gift to you. There's no strings attached, no credit card required. You should know me by now that I'm a person that serves first, and hopefully you've gotten something out of today. And all I care about is helping you build a more profitable and fun practice and a better, more prosperous and fulfilling life. So if you're interested in that, and Shaylin is okay with it, we'll be happy to allow you to get this. The 4freedomsofdentistry.com. I think they'll put that in the chat, and it's my gift to you. Truly, it's a free book in the mail to just help continue your education, which I know you love to do. So team, I'll turn it back over to you, and thank you so much. And I just will read this last quote here as I turn it over to the powers that be. There are far, far better things ahead than anything we leave behind. You know, I don't know that what the AACP tagline is actually, but that'd be a good one. So I believe you're here, okay, for the future, to keep creating, to keep innovating, to keep serving, to keep pushing the limits and being open-minded. So there are far, far better things ahead than anything we leave behind. I hope today you can leave behind some preconceived ideas, some of your own limiting beliefs, okay, and you can move forward into the future and take more control over your patient outcomes and help more people get healthy through this 7-step patient experience and some of the mindset things I shared tonight. Thanks, everybody. I'm not sure how the Q&A works, but I assume if you want to send some questions in the chat, or the big boss here, Shaylin, will give you the rules of engagement.
Thank you so much, Scott. That was a lot of really awesome information. So thank you. We do have a few questions that came in the Q&A. The first one is, once we have identified our intentions, how do you suggest we prioritize them and keep our team from being overwhelmed?
That's a very interesting question. That question begets about 5 other questions, but I'm going to capture the team overwhelmed part in our intentions. So I'm going to say your intentions are that you want to do more pain and sleep cases. And so here's what I would tell you. You can't over-educate your team. So first of all, you got to treat your team like a patient first. It's basic stuff to screen all of them. You also have to compartmentalize time. You may have a team member that just catches on, is just super excited and amazing. And so maybe they become the person that really, goes along with you as your right hand as you start treating more pain and sleep cases. And compartmentalizing, I mean, in your schedule. So you can be in the zone so the team knows what's going on when. And then the other thing I would just extrapolate from your question, I see so many people get super excited about pain and sleep, and then they tend to take their eye off the ball of the restorative dentistry, or they get a whole bunch of patients super confused about coming in for broken teeth and leaving with sleep appliances. So what I would say to you, doctor, is the more clarity you have, okay, the easier it will be for you to transition in. And I would just remember that the team nor the patient is ever going to be the doctor and understand what you do. So you really got to paint by number. And I would diagnose to a set of principles with neuromuscular, joint, jaw pain, bite, airway as part of your global, focus on health. And so that way a patient sees it as a piece of the whole picture and doesn't think that it's like either or, okay, teeth or jaw or airway. So I don't know that that's your question was a beautiful question, but it maybe not as specific for me to give a super specific answer.
Right, we might need a couple more hours for that one. Yeah. Next question, how can we in the AACP implement these techniques as efficiently as possible?
Oh yeah, listen, that's a great question. I mean, the bottom line is in most every case, and again, this is not to toot my own horn. I'm sure you'll just be fine without me. But like when you look at any of these doctors I showed you, every one of them cuts their time down dramatically. They can start way more cases in far fewer minutes per day or days per week, simply because we elevate the screening and we develop a more prepared patient. And the other thing is that the team really can do a lot. So if you had 90-minute experience, the better the team is at capturing diagnostic records, at warming the patient up to be able to deliver data to you, the tighter the window of time the doctor can engage. And so it's no different than in a traditional dental practice. You ask yourself, what's everything that the assistants can help me with? And what are only the things that I can do? And you do that exact same thing with TMJ and Sleep. Now, the other thing, and this, listen, again, I'm not the doctor, okay? But if my good buddy, Dr. Rondeau, or Dr. Lipskis, who teaches, all kinds of facial development type orthodontics to people, you don't have to see him as often as you think, okay? So like you be the judge, but the sleep patients may come back less frequently, or they may see someone else. It's all a matter of setting expectations. One of Dr. Clower's trajectories of growth was a nurse practitioner to do things that he didn't have to necessarily do, so he could be freed up for more new patient, exams and conversions. So hopefully that helps, but don't misunderstand. It does take time to build relationships and trust, and that's just the most important part. So we tend to get caught up in the busy items instead of the ones that move the needle and are most meaningful.
Awesome. So you kind of answered this one, but do you have scheduling templates to allow treatment for the same day without potentially creating unproductive downtime?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I don't do any cookie cutter templates. Every doctor practice, unique. I mean, heavens, as Shaylin knows, we got however many people on this thing doing TMJ, and every one of them's got a different protocol, and we're still treating TMJ. So like it's really important to make it your own. But if I were just going to give you an example, really quick, if we say that, there's, I'm going to show you, doctor, and then scan. So, what happens is you might have a new patient coming in here. You got a diagnosis and patient engagement or diagnostics. Then you have the doctors in the middle of it. Well, if the patient's going to do the case start, you can leave, they can get impressions, you come over here and start something else. So it really is, it's a matter of looking at how, depending on how many treatment rooms you have to do pain and sleep, and then making sure you prioritize that you should have in a specialty practice or a general practice with specialty inside, a new patient up and down your day all day long, because you're not with the patient the whole time. And so next door to that, you can be doing follow-ups, post-ops, deliveries, adjustments, but you have to stay on offense all day. And you don't want to get loaded up where you've got a bunch of case starts and now next 2 weeks you got no new patients. So you got to find a way to work the schedule in parallel. And it is possible. Actually, it's way less stressful doing it that way, and it can be tweaked based on your current dynamic.
Great. Last question. Do you have suggestions for what to include in an intro video?
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, that's a great question. And so first of all, I don't do too much. Okay. I would always reward good behavior. Always congratulate the patient. What an amazing decision you've made. Hey, calling our practice, we're so honored, but I got to tell you, it's the right move. Hey, we're going to change your life. Hey, as soon as we get to meet you, we're going to discover so many things about you. It could be things you've been told in the past that aren't true, and it could be things you never knew, to be relevant. And so when you come in, understand our most important responsibility is to get to know you. And that's what we love to do the most. And what I can promise one way or another at the end of this visit, we're going to have some kind of outcome of solutions. They're going to give you hope for a better way forward. I just wanted to, and so by the way, I would have interjected who I am first. Congratulations. Here's who I am. We're really excited you're coming to our practice. Thanks for trusting us. Let me tell you a little bit about what to expect and why people come to our practice. Okay, so that's kind of a short version that you could do. And then you could have a little bit more in writing, or you could have patient stories, down below the page where that video would exist.
Great suggestions. And that was our final question. So with that, thank you so much again, Scott, for the wonderful presentation, all of the great information. And thank you to everyone in attendance. And as a reminder, we'll send out the recording within the next week.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Thank you, Sharon, and for having me, and for all the amazing things you're doing for doctors literally across the world and helping millions of patients through the hands of others. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care, everybody.